Mark Meadows, the last in a series of so-called chiefs of staff for the Orange Vomit. According to testimony now that the committee has dug out, he played a far more substantial role in his plans to overthrow the United States government and destroy small d democracy in this country than was previously known. And he was involved, this is according to the New York Times, he was also involved in failed efforts to get Trump to order the mob invading the Capitol to stand down. The Times reports that from this veritable trove of about 9,000 documents that Meadows, before he got word from his Lord and God, the Orange Vomit, that Meadows turned over before he halted his cooperation with the inquiry. But from that mountain of documents, information, and clear pictures emerged about the extent of his involvement in Trump's attempt to use the government itself to overthrow the government. I mean, if this is not Hitlerian, if this is not out of Mein Kampf, somebody tell me where it comes from. It doesn't come from Trump. Trump doesn't have a brain. He has a blob of chicken fat sitting inside his skull, or pork fat. I'm sorry, no offense to chickens or pigs. Oh, never mind. Anyway, last night the committee voted 9-0 to recommend that Mark Meadows be charged with criminal contempt for defying the subpoena. And like I mentioned a second ago, before the vote, Liz Cheney added to the evidence implicating Mark Meadows in those events. And she read those text messages from the walking cat piss that would be Donald Trump Jr., and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and Brian Kilmeade and the rest of these scum urging Trump speak out about the violence. Of course, he didn't. One of the texts that Liz Cheney read during the hearing last night came from this vomitous little prick, Donald Trump Jr. His text read, quote, this is Trump Jr. talking, quote, he's got to condemn this ship ASAP. And Mark Meadows, the Nazi conciliere for the Orange Vomit, he responded immediately, I'm pushing it hard. I agree. And in another message, the little walking cat piss implored Mark Meadows thusly, quote, we need an Oval Address. He has to lead now. It's gone too far and gotten out of hand. What's gone too far? What's gone out of hand, you little bastard? And then, of course, repeat one more time, the blonde bitch texted to Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. He's destroying his legacy. And then Cheney also quoted panicked text messages from unnamed people who were in the building. One of those was to Mark Meadows, has said, quote, we're under siege up here at the Capitol. Cheney said, these text messages leave no doubt the White House knew exactly what was happening at the Capitol, end quote. So, criminal contempt. You know what the worst, this Nazi Mark Meadows, am I using the term Nazi a lot? Yes, you're fucking right, I'm using the term Nazi a lot, because that's exactly the playbook from which these half-wits, these destroyers, drew their plans. And this is what they are. Even the rabble, the scum, the little boys who tried to be men and attack the Capitol with their weapons and their clubs and their little marchy in uniform, they are Nazis too. Every fucking one of them. Anyway, the worst that can happen to this little rat bastard Mark Meadows, the worst that can happen, up to a year in jail. A year in jail for trying to do what he did. A year in jail. What this committee has discovered that Mark Meadows, who's a former congressman from North Carolina, He was the head of the neo-fascist House Freedom Caucus. That's newspeak for No Freedom Caucus. But he essentially served as the Orange Vomit's right-hand man throughout all the steps, all the efforts to undermine the 2020 election. He encouraged members of Congress to object to Biden's victory, and he pursued all kinds of bullshit allegations of voter fraud in several states. When did Mark Meadows sell his very goddamn soul to Satan? Or Trump? Of course, they're the same. But, I mean, it was a complete sale by Mark Meadows. And in terms of Mark Meadows' full involvement, it's even deeper than this. I mean, Meadows is going to turn out to be, like I said, he's the linchpin between the Orange Vomit and an attempt to destroy this country. But Meadows personally coordinated with rally planners who brought these thugs, these baby-fied half-men, to Washington on January 6th to protest what they continue even then, even now, a year later, to call the steal, the what do they call it? Stop the steal. That the election had been stolen from the slimy son of a bitch. And it was Meadows, and the committee has all of this now. Meadows has said he would enlist the National Guard to protect the rioters and essentially kill American citizens who tried to counter-protest against these rioters, or some American citizen who might take a swing, a punch at one of these little Nazi fucks. That's what Mark Meadows was guaranteeing. Death to American citizens by the U.S. military. And he faces max 1 year in prison. This goes back to what I've been saying. Arrest him, try him, and if convicted, put this motherfucker in the gallows. Hang him by the neck until he shits his pants and stops breathing. I mean, what are you going to do? Pat him on the head, let him go get a job like John Yoo did at University of California, Berkeley? John Yoo, the guy who worked for the war criminal George W. Bush and came up with the idea that the United States is entitled to and obligated to and sanctioned, blessed to use torture against people who have not been charged with anything. Is that what's going to happen to Mark Meadows? Maybe he'll wind up at Stanford. Jesus Christ. And where is Merrick Garland? Attorney General, come the fuck out of your crawl space and put these people in chains. Arrest them. Try them for treason. What the fuck are you doing, Garland? Unbelievable. Man. And according to the New York Times at one point, and this is according to evidence that this filthy Meadows had turned over already, at one point an organizer of the rally turned to Meadows for help, telling him that things, quote, things have gotten crazy and I desperately need some direction, please. See what I mean by little prepubescent boys, these guys running around in these goddamn jack-off uniforms like they're men, like they're combat veterans. I mean, just nasty little cretins who on their own would run behind a tree and piss their pants with this kind of shit going on around them. But in a mob, hey, I'm a big man. Hey, I'll take some bear spray and spray you in your fucking face, cop. Hey, guys, look what I'm doing. On his own, that same guy would have turned tail and run like the little rabbit that he is. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.